everybody. Welcome to episode 1 of Over the Boards podcast. It is Friday, September 20th. I am Brett Lewis. I'm joined by Josh McKinnon. We have some fun stuff to talk about today. We're a little late to the game. A lot of our FAs have signed their contracts. Thank God. It's finally over. We don't have to deal with that anymore. Josh, I'm pretty happy. Are you pretty happy?
Yeah, for sure. The whole summer's been about who's going to sign, when they're going to sign, and what they're going to sign for. All summer, we're just waiting for that one guy to sign his contract to get the ball rolling, and Marner did that last Friday night, and ever since then, guys have been signing left, right, and center.
All right, so I'm going to break down this contract for you. Tell me what you think. All right, so it's 6 years with an AAV of 10.893. Nice little Doug Gilmour reference. That was his number in junior with the London Knights. So, first 2 years, his salary, $700,000. It's pretty cheap. All signing bonus. The next 4, $750,000. Still, all signing bonus. I mean, pretty cheap contract. I mean, he's going to be paid every July 1st. He's going to be a pretty happy man. I mean, to me, that's a pretty good contract. They were talking about how he turned down that 8-year, 7-year. They didn't really specify the year. There's been some back and forth. 11 mil, and people went nuts. He's greedy. He's an a-hole. We want him out. They were done with him. 2 days later, it comes through just under 11 million. Like, it's kind of crazy. The one contract he turned down, that say 8 by 11, don't forget, all these players are paid in American money. When you translate that to Canadian, it's $116 million that he turned down. Not going to do the mental math, but I don't know the contract he accepted. I'm going to take a guess. Say it's just a little bit under that, but nonetheless, he is a rich man.
Yeah, for sure. And the signing bonus thing, Toronto's no stranger to that. That's how they pay. That's how they've been paying their big guys for the last little bit. It started with Tavares when they signed him as a free agent. All his money during the year is July 1st. Nylander, July 1st. Matthews, July 1st. Now Marner, July 1st. And you're going to probably be seeing a lot more of that with the big name RFAs and the big market teams. It's going to be harder for small market teams to compete with that, and that's probably going to be something brought up in the next CBA, but for now, that's how contracts can be signed, and teams are using that to their advantage.
All right, so my New Jersey Devils, our one RFA that we still had left was Pavel Zacha. He signs a 3-year, 2.25 AAV. Not a bad contract if he plays a little better, if he moves up. He's had that top 6 role before. He had some good chances last year with all the injuries that we had. Didn't really work out. Part of me thinks it's a good contract. Part of me is kind of worried because I don't know which way he's going to go. If he gets better, it's a good contract. If he kind of stays how he is, that's a worrisome contract. But at the end of the day, it's only 3 years, so you can move that. And if you can't, you can eat it. It's not really that big of a deal at the moment.
Yeah, it's a decent contract for a guy who has been up and down the lineup and has played well at points. A little surprised he got the 3rd year. Usually when guys are in his situation, teams only are willing to give him a 2-year bridge deal, so getting that 3rd year was probably a bonus for him, and it can end up being one of those contracts that are looked at a bargain in a year or two if he finally reaches that potential that they hoped he would reach when they took him in the 2015 draft.
All right, you moved just over a little bit to some divisional rivals. Philly signs 2 of their RFAs. Ivan Provorov gets a 6 by 6.75 AAV, and Travis Konecny gets a 6 by 5.5 AAV. Those are some interesting contracts when you look at it. I mean, Provorov he was hot right away. Had a good first year, had an okay, second year, sophomore slump, it happens. And last year took a pretty big step back. Really surprised on the value that he's getting, but when you look at the way that RFAs are getting paid now, they're paying for the potential of what a player could be. It's not the same as it used to be years ago where you had an established player and you paid them for being an established player. The young kids these days, they turn the market completely. That's what it was. You got paid for the player you were. You got paid for your name. You might have had an off year the year before, but you're Patrick Kane. You're going to get paid. And it's different now. You see all these RFAs. You see Mitch Marner. Not to knock against them. Yes, he had 93, 94 points last year, but he hasn't done anything. The Leafs haven't done anything. They lost in the first round 3 straight years. If you don't get out of the first round again this year, what has he done? I mean, he had 2 okay years before that. He signs this big, massive contract a year after playing with John Tavares. The market's shifted. It's kind of crazy, but I mean, Philly believes in these guys, and they think this is going to be their future. Provorov could be a really bad contract if it doesn't work out with him, but if it does, it could be a good contract. He has potential to be that top 2D. He can play that good two-way game. It makes sense if he grows into it. Konecny, that's a good deal in my opinion for the player he is right now. Even if he continues to grow, that's a really good deal. That being said, he's not playing center anymore. He's playing on the wing. So you don't know where he's going to be in the lineup. I'm going to take a guess and say he's going to be second-line winger. But you don't know with them, right?
Yeah, and I think what really set the market for the Provorov contract was it may be all defenseman contracts recently was this Samuel Girard contract out of Colorado when he signed for $5 million a year for 7 years. I think that kind of set the market for a lot of guys. So not a big surprise with the Provorov deal. That's probably what he's worth around now if you take it into terms of comparing him with Girard. So I have no problem with that deal. The Konecny deal, that's average for forwards of his skill level right now. Definitely going to hopefully fill that top 6 role that you were talking about for Philly, and if he ends up filling it really well, that's a really good contract for Philly, who hasn't been shy about spending the money this summer at all.
All right, so Josh, looks like Philly has a pretty solid top 6. Can you think of a single player on that team who's now going to be playing third line, especially after the offseason that Philly has had, who might not have been playing third line after the year that he had last year and going into this year and now has to be stuck there in that third line center role?
Yeah, I think we both know it's Nolan Patrick. That's not a surprise. I was really hoping he would get that second line center job this year and hopefully just maybe throw him to the Wolves this year and see if he can handle it. But when they signed Kevin Hayes to that big contract, there's no way they're going to let Hayes sit on the third line when they're paying him that much money. So unless Philly move him to the wing, Patrick, when he returns from that injury, is going to come back at a third line center role, and he's just going to have to play as hard as he can to earn extra minutes on the power play and special teams.
Now, Philly has a good history of having a nice fourth line center. That's one of the things. The Broad Street Bullies, they usually have tough physical centers who win faceoffs, which, of course, is what you need on that fourth line. Now, you have a guy like Morgan Frost coming in, who, if he makes the team this year, you're not putting him fourth line. He's going to be at least a third line center. And if Nolan Patrick can't move to the wing or won't move to the wing, that's a sticky situation. You have a former second overall pick, thought to be the first overall pick, stuck on your third line, competing with a guy who's going to take that role, I would think. You got to move him. That's the only logical thing I can think of, but I can't think of where he would go, and at this time in his career, what a healthy return would even be.
Yeah, the market would definitely be, I wouldn't say small, but definitely not large for Nolan Patrick, just because you don't know what Philly would want in return for him. Because, like you said, former second overall pick, and that entire draft year, most people thought he was going to go first until Nico Hischier came in at nowhere. So it'd be hard. Like, if I was Philly, I'd definitely find a way for me to put him in the lineup and let him flourish. Like, you got to give this guy a better chance than you have been so far, and you got to make it worthwhile. You took him with the second overall pick, so we'll see what happens when he comes back and where he goes into the lineup. But the Metro's super competitive this year, and every team in the Metro has to be putting out their best lineup every night to really make the playoffs this year. So if he ends up not being part of that lineup, you got to move him out because you're just wasting talent there.
All right, 2 defensemen signed as well. We have Morrissey and McAvoy. McAvoy signs a beautiful contract. If you're a Boston fan, it shouldn't have been a surprise. But no, McAvoy's contract, it's pretty good if you're a Boston fan. Everybody takes a discount in Boston. You look at those contracts that they have where David Krejci is your top paid player. No disrespect to him, but I don't think on any other team he's going to be your top paid guy. That being said, McAvoy's been in that situation in that locker room for a while. He's realized that if you want to win on a team like that, you got to take your pay cuts, and that's what it is. He signs a 3-year, just under $5 million at 4.9. It's a cheap contract, and I think they're really betting on him to step it up now with Big Z, who he's played with before. This is probably his last year. He signed that 1-year contract. I think Boston is going to give him 1-year contracts until he says no. But I do truly believe this is going to be his last year. He's going to look at a lot of minutes this year, and you're going to see him develop really into that top role. Now, the other signing we had was Morrissey in Winnipeg, and wasn't really surprised. We all seen it coming. I mean, the Winnipeg had their hands tied. They lost 3 big defensemen. You had to lock down Morrissey, or that blue line just completely falls apart.
Yeah, when you look at Morrissey starting that contract, Kevin Cheveldayoff really had not no choice, but really had no hard decision in making to sign Morrissey to this contract. Especially when you lose 3 key defensemen, you see Trouba go, Myers go, and Sherratt go. Those are 3 guys that were heavy minute loggers on the blue line last year at certain times, and when you see guys go like that, it's going to be a fresh blue line. So to have Morrissey back there is going to have some stability back there, but and we're going to get into this later, and what Byfuglien may be retiring, you have to believe that Morrissey might be that number 1 defenseman this year on that team when they look to rebuild that blue line.
Well, we might as well just jump right into it now. A week ago, it comes out that Byfuglien, the first day of training camp, is put on leave. I didn't read about it, but it was put out there that it wasn't a family issue; it was a personal issue upon himself. So, that's good. I mean, you don't want to ever hear that he's leaving the team because of a death in the family or something happening. And then 2-3 days ago, it comes out Big Buff might be retiring.
Yeah, a lot of reports say that he's lost the love for the game, or might have lost the love for the game, and that's what he's thinking about right now. It's sad to see, obviously. Beloved guy in Winnipeg and throughout the whole league. Dustin Byfuglien's a great player, great guy off the ice. You hear about him all the time, and it sucks when a guy loses the love for the game, but he's played a lot, and just every guy has their time to hang up the skates, and hopefully it's not, but maybe it's his time to hang them up.
Yeah, and I mean, I completely have nothing but respect for that. Buff is one of those. He's a generation player, and I don't mean that as in he's an elite like a Sidney Crosby, but how many guys are defensemen that goes up there and play the wing? Brent Burns, the only person I can think of, and that's only because Brent Burns is pretty much a pure offensive defenseman. I mean, Byfuglien, he can play defensive. He's physical. He completely does it all. And if you lose him in Winnipeg, that's one of the biggest blows. I mean, he had a concussion last year. He had issues with his legs, but he still put up 31 points in 42 games, which is crazy at 35 years old. I mean, he really doesn't have not much more to play for, but he won a Stanley Cup with Chicago. He was a massive role in that victory in 2010. So he has that ring. He's made millions of dollars. So, I mean, at this point, if his health is a serious issue, then yeah, there's nothing really left for him to play for. It's full respect for him if he decides to leave. I think it's $20-something million on the table over the next 2-3 years to retire and be with his family, and nothing but respect for that.
Yeah, no, you gotta let a guy make his own decision, but if he does leave, that definitely leaves a big hole in that blue line, in a team that was already searching for new, fresh faces for that blue line. They're going to be searching way down their depth chart to carry 7 defensemen for the team this year. So you got to believe if Big Buff's gone, it's going to make it even harder for Winnipeg to compete this year for sure.
Now, if you're Winnipeg, do you think they're caught off guard? Like, myself, if I'm Winnipeg, I got to know, 35 years old, coming off a concussion, this might be a situation that's coming up. I mean, a lot of people are comparing it to an Andrew Luck situation. I mean, kind of the same, kind of not. Just to me, if I'm Winnipeg, I feel like I should have seen this coming and I should have prepared. I know they don't have a lot of cap space as it is, but if that's a situation they knew about, I feel like there should have been some moves made at some point. Ben Hutton signs a 1-year, $1.5 million contract with LA. That's a cheap contract. And if I'm Winnipeg and I'm looking at that saying he chose to be in LA, yeah, it's LA. It's unreal to step outside the rink in shorts. But to me, LA's not in a win situation. And the amount of damage the blue line took this year in Winnipeg, a $1.5 million salary for Ben Hutton, I would have took that every day. And if you're Cheveldayoff, that's a hard swallow to see that.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about Ben Hutton. Vancouver last couple years, he's an alright defenseman. If you play him too much, he makes mistakes. He's a defenseman where you put him on the third pairing. He's a third pairing guy. The more minutes he logs, the more mistakes he's gonna make. So I get the contract, and if LA overuses him, the contract's gonna look really bad, and that could be a contract that they move for a team that's gonna use him on the third pairing. But I just think that Winnipeg not really bringing in anybody besides Pionk and the Trouba trade. I think they just believe in the depth that they have and think they can have an NHL defensive core that can hopefully carry them into the playoffs along with the forwards and goaltending, because you need an all-around game in the West to make it happen. So it's going to be tough for Winnipeg if Big Buff, like I said, does step out, but I think they do have the depth in order to get them into the playoffs. It's just when they get into the playoffs.
Another Winnipeg Jet. Did you hear about the apparent offer that was given to Kyle Connor?
I did not yet, no.
They offered Kyle Connor a 3-year at an AAV of 5.7.
It's very underpaid for Kyle Connor.
That's if I'm Kyle Connor, that's a slap to the face.
It's a slap for sure.
That's a two-handed slap.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry,
I know you don't have cap space, but in my opinion, Kyle Connor was the third best, fourth best RFA available. I mean, it's hard to rank them all. I mean, when you have guys like Braden Point, Marner, Randon, Kachuk, Kyle Connor, Patrick Laine, this is the best RFA class there's ever been, and probably ever will be again. So, like, I don't know how you rank them.
To offer your probably third best forward.
Yes.
On Winnipeg. I don't think there's a lot of argument there. To offer him 5.7 for 3 years, that's just crazy to me. If you see, you're telling me that Kevin Cheveldayoff believes that Kyle Connor's on the same level as Travis Konechny. That's what you're pretty much saying when you say that's what Cheveldayoff is saying when he says 5.7.
I mean, that's what it must be. I can't see it any other way. Like, not even 6. You're not even going to offer him $6 million. Does he? I know, like, a lot of players on Winnipeg aren't making a lot of money. It's just a lot of good talent making decent money, and that's where their cap is. But I think Blake Wheeler makes 6.5. You don't give him 6.5 even with their cap issues.
You would think the floor with Connor is at least 7.
Yeah, like
with the way guys are signing now, you think the floor for him is 7. And that's the floor. I'm not saying Kyle Connor is. I think Kyle Connor's worth more than 7. I'm just saying the floor starts at 7 for Kyle Connor.
Yeah, if I'm Kyle Connor, I wouldn't take anything under 7. 8 would be my all right, we can talk kind of situation.
The 8 would make more sense for 3 years.
Yeah, I mean, I know people are saying bridge deals don't exist anymore. They kind of do. I mean, Brock Besser signed a bridge deal.
Yeah, and he did sign for 5.75, but I think that's more of him signing a team-friendly deal because he'll get paid after those 3 years.
Yeah, and that's the situation with the cap. Everybody keeps speculating the cap's going up, and people say in 5 years it's going to be $100 million. I don't see that. Call me crazy, I don't see it, but it could be a thing. And that's the thing with Marner. They're saying he just wants 4 or 5 years so he can get out there in free agency and collect money. Which, don't get me wrong, if you're a player, I want to get paid. Why not get paid $15 million a year to play the sport you love?
You never know how long you're in the league.
No, and that's what people say. Like, take the guaranteed money.
You don't know how long. Yeah. One hit and you're out, so you might as well get as much money as you can while you're in the league.
No, for sure. But it's kind of that. No, that 5.7 is a slap in the face. But speaking of Winnipeg and slaps in the face, if you're Blake Wheeler, how do you feel about Patrick Laine's comments?
Well,
First of all, did you hear what he said, like about playing?
yes, about the ice time, and Wheeler's response was positive.
Yeah,
He said we want guys that are hungry for ice time and want to play more, but I think Patrick Laine has to start earning his time. He's too streaky of a player. Paul Maurice put him on the first line, gave him that opportunity, and yes, he scored, but then he just stopped, and he moved up and down the lineup, being really streaky, and you got to earn minutes in the NHL. Just because you're taking second overall, as we're seeing in Philadelphia with Nolan Patrick, it doesn't mean you're going to get 20 minutes of ice time a night. So if he wants to earn it, he's going to have to negotiate a contract, come back over here, and start playing his heart out.
and those comments are coming from Blake Wheeler, who, if you ask anybody who follows the NHL, is one of the top 5 most underrated players, unappreciated players in the NHL. What that guy does for Winnipeg is unbelievable. But, like we're talking about, Laine, he's over with SC Bern in the Swiss League. He hasn't signed, he's just practicing. Do you know who else is over there? Playing with that exact same team?
Mikko
Rantanen, you're correct. Did you hear his contract negotiation so far?
I did. How they are in the ballpark of 8.5 to 8.7.
Drop it by $1 million.
Oh, it's 7.
7.5.
Okay.
7.5.
Because I know they don't want to give him Marner money.
They came out and said they're not giving him Marner money, which makes sense because when you look at the amount of contracts they're going to have to pay in the next 2 years,
Yeah.
that's crazy. But to give a player like that 7.5 when he does what he does for your team, I mean, he was part of one of the best lines last year in hockey.
Second best line.
Second best line after Boston. After Boston.
Like, anyone that knows hockey knows that, like, the Pasternak, Bergeron, and Marchand line is the best, but Colorado's definitely the second.
Yeah, when you have anybody like Nathan MacKinnon playing on any line, it's automatically a dominant line. Speaking contracts, one of the most underrated or underpaid players. But I mean, again, we're talking about contracts. He signed that way back when the cap was lower. It's like
that was seen as one of the highest contracts then.
Yeah.
And now people are saying that's the biggest bargain in the NHL.
Yeah, and I remember the Draisaitl contract. You and I talked about it when it first came out, and we went, that's a big contract for someone
who needs Connor McDavid. Who needed McDavid at the time.
At the time, needed McDavid, and time has obviously shown that that's not true because scoring 50 goals on your own line.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good contract now, but at the time, that was a hard-looking contract from a team that was already in cap situation. Now, like, I look at it like that with some players like Laine. If Laine signs a contract of $9 million and flounders, you can't eat that contract. You can't move it. Nobody wants at one time the next Alex Ovechkin making $9 million when he can't score any goals. And yes, he's a sniper, and yes, Patrick Laine has hit 30 goals all 3 years in the NHL, but in the last 70 games, he had 12 goals.
Yeah.
Like, I don't understand. Like, if you're going to talk about comparisons with anybody, definitely Laine is the person you cannot compare anybody to because the guy is a pure sniper, but he's a liability anywhere else. And he, in the last 70 games, to score 12 goals, that's ridiculous.
Yeah, and when you talk about comparisons now, too, I know everyone likes to do comparables. That's how you start contract negotiations. I put up this many points, so did this guy. This is what he gets paid. I think I'm worth this because the cap is now this.
You and I play the same role. You make $9 million. We do pretty much the same thing. I deserve at least $9 million.
Yeah, and that's your floor. But I think this has definitely been the summer of non-comparables. Like we were just talking about with Mikko Rantanen and Joe Sakic coming out and saying, we're not giving him Marner money. Well, points-wise, Rantanen and Marner, very comparable.
5 less points. I could be wrong. I think 5 less points in the last
They're
3
both
years.
in the same ballpark when it came to
right
points
next
last
to each
year.
other.
So to say they're not going to give him that kind of money, they're not using comparables. And I think the smaller market teams are not using comparables as much because you just can't, because the big market teams are taking the comparables and shooting them up way too high for other teams. And to start at 7.5 for Rantanen when Sebastian Aho is getting 8.5, and in my opinion, Rantanen is better than Aho. And it's not just because of the line he plays on. I think Mikko Rantanen's an all-around better player.
Yeah, Mikko Rantanen is an all-around player. He does everything. He's not a Sebastian Aho who scores goals, or a Jeff Skinner who's making the same amount of money, who's just a sniper. Mikko Rantanen kills penalties. He'll play the power play. You can put him first, second, third, fourth line, and he's gonna show up. And he's one of those all-around players that you need.
Yeah, and Mikko and Patrick, they share an agent, and their agents come out and said, we're not close on either one of them. So you got to think that this might leak into the season. Will it go to December? I don't think it will, but I think it might stretch into late October, definitely for both of them. And that might hurt Laine's already hurt minutes with Paul Maurice, because you got to start thinking that Paul Maurice is getting less and less of a fan of Patrick Laine.
No, for sure. Braden Point comes out, the media comes out and says they're close, and then a day later says we are absolutely not close at all. Tampa Bay only has one player to sign, and it's him. Tampa Bay also has no money. I mean, like a lot of top teams, I mean, obviously you don't have money, but to have one of the best teams and have what is arguably the best season of all time last year and then flump in the playoffs, he's the one player. He should be a part of that team for a long time. The only issue is you have so many good players being paid so much money. It's not a Toronto situation where you have 4 guys making $40 million. This is an entire team of great talent where the money is spread evenly throughout it. And then you have this one guy who's going to be coming up through who also needs to get paid. I mean, Tampa has no money. They have long contracts. To me, this is a situation where a bridge deal comes into effect. If I am Tampa Bay management, I'm saying, listen, sign a 2-3 year bridge contract. We look like we can win a cup this year. We look like we could have won it last year. Things didn't go that way. Sign a 2-3 year bridge contract at 8.5. Sign the same thing that Stamkos has. You say, hey, Stamkos, your buddy, sign the same contract as him. You guys are going to live it up. There's no state tax in Florida. That's $8.5 million in your pocket.
I 100% in this. I could be totally wrong because next week could come out that he did, but I can't see him even thinking about a bridge deal. I can't. He's a mid-round pick. It's not like he was a first-round pick. He's worked hard to get where he's at, and the guy deserves his money. He was a huge part of what Tampa did last year. There's no doubt about it. Yes, they just went belly up in the playoffs. We all seen it. We all know what happened. But in that regular season, Braden Point was an integral part of that team. And it's funny because this is what you get for good scouting. Teams are always looking for those diamonds in the rough, and Tampa got one in Braden Point. And you got to pay him now. You have to. If you want to set up for success, you have to pay him. If you can honestly convince him that you're going to win a cup this year or the next, that might tip the scale and he'll say, okay, let's do it. But it's just hard for him to see Marner get 10.893 and him to get $2 million less when they're pretty much the same player points and play style wise.
But how do you sign him to this big, massive contract when Steven Stamkos makes 8.5 and the leading MVP from last year, who had 126 points, makes 9? Are you going to come in and say, hey, look, 22-year-old, who, yes, worked his ass off to get where he is, here's $10 million and all of our salary cap. Say goodbye to one of your friends because they're gone because you wanted that money.
That's the way the cap goes. Those guys signed those contracts when the cap was down.
But Kucherov signed last year. So did Stamkos. Stamkos signed 2 years ago.
It's still the cap rising little by little. Nathan MacKinnon, we look at that as you think Mikko Rantanen's not going to make more than Nathan MacKinnon when he signs his contract finally?
No, for sure, but that was a 2-3 year, that was a while ago contract, and that's Colorado. It's a little more expensive state. Florida, there's no state tax. And I don't know how you look at that leadership core and you're sitting next to Steven Stamkos in that room and you say, hey, listen, you make 8.5 and you've been the face of this franchise for 10 years at this point, but I need more money than you, even though you just signed. And then you have the leading MVP with 126 points, getting paid $9 million. Yes, you put up 90-ish points, but like, how do you ask for $10 million just because Marner got it and the market has shot up for RFAs? Like, I don't see what leg you have to stand on through your agents. Yes, Marner got paid that much money, but you have to realize that's Toronto. They're in a league of their own with that. I just don't see it. I don't know where they're going to fit
Isn't
that
Tampa
in.
in a league of their own like that now, too? The moves they've made the last 3 years, trading for the big names at the deadline, signing big contracts for their star players. Tampa's just been like Toronto the last couple of years, maybe a little more with trades. But I don't think Braden Point's going to end up with more. I don't think he's going to end up with 10, but I think he will get paid more than both Stamkos and Kucherov. I see Braden Point coming in at the like 9.2, 9.5 range. And it's just because of the cap and when he's signing the contract. There's always the next guy up.
But who do you move? That's my question. Because they got rid of Miller to Vancouver, which was a steal to get that first round pick from them. They moved Dan Girardi's gone.
Yeah, retired.
Yeah, he's retired. But who do you move? They got rid of Dubinsky.
I guess the one contract off the top of my head would be the Killorn contract. I think he's around 4.5. 4 points. I think it's 4.5 for him. I think that would be the most ideal contract to move out. I don't know if that would make it enough, but you gotta figure it out. That's the salary cap era.
All right, so Josh, if you're a young defenseman, former first overall pick, 14th overall, playing in the beautiful state of Texas, you're scratched the last 35 games and playoffs, how do you feel?
Probably a little upset with the team. Definitely not getting enough playing time for probably my skill level. I think I'm a little underrated when it comes to that defense core. And I would probably ask for a trade, which Julius Honka has done.
Would you look at that? We had a trade request from a nice young lad. And apparently there's 2 teams who are interested. And they are Carolina, who's been talking about moving a defenseman already.
And Justin Falk, who might be going to Anaheim on mid-contract negotiations.
Yes. And you have the Montreal Canadiens,
who I told you the other day might be interested.
Yes. Now, if you're Carolina, do you just go, hey, look, here's Justin Falk, and whatever works out in between with players and picks, and you dangle an established defenseman on a team who already has a pretty good D-core as it is, and played really well last year in like Dallas as a whole, who contend well, who just ran into a superior team. I mean, they have one of the best goalie duos. They have top players like Sagan and Jamie Benn, who I feel
Klingberg on the back end.
Yeah, like you have this amazing young team. Not young, but I mean...
You have a good core set.
Yeah, everything's in place. They had a good run last year. Do you say, hey, look, we'll take Justin Falk, and you can get this young guy who kind of unproven and kind of wants a change of scenery, because we didn't like what we saw on him?
If you can make that happen, I'd do it in a heartbeat, because then you have a top 4 that would be Klingberg, Heiskanen, Lindell, and Falk, and that sounds like
that's a
very good top 4 to me.
No,
if you can make that happen with picks, I would assume be maybe going each way and stuff. But no, if I'm Dallas, I'm definitely calling Carolina if they are trying to move Falk and they're interested in Honka and say, what can we do to make this happen? Because I don't really understand why Anaheim would be going for Falk.
I don't know if you're Falk why you want to go to Anaheim,
yeah.
Unless you just want to be in the sun. And
I can understand why. I should have corrected myself. I understand why Anaheim would want a Justin Falk, obviously. Who wouldn't really want a Justin Falk? He's a really good defenseman. But like you said, if you're Justin Falk, why would you go to Anaheim? They're in a weird period where you don't know where they're going to be at.
No, they have a lot of money tied up into people who just aren't producing to what they should be. I mean, there was talk of Getzlaf being maybe retiring.
We've seen Corey Perry go to Dallas this summer.
Yeah, Corey Perry got bought out and left. I mean, you have a lot of guys making a lot of money. You know, I mean, we're going to talk about it later, but you have guys like Ryan Kessler, Patrick Eves, you know, they have money. That's a lot of money. I mean, I'm going to assume we'll get to it, but Kessler is going to be an LTIR kind of guy. But that's still a lot of money. And if you're Justin Falk, unless you really want to walk outside in a pair of shorts, why are you going to go to Anaheim? I don't see Anaheim being better than Vegas. Heck, I see LA having a bounce back year and being better than Anaheim. I don't see LA making the playoffs.
The only reason why Justin Falk would ever go to Anaheim is if they gave him a contract offer that he'd be too stupid to refuse. That's the only, and that's the only thing holding this trade back. And mind you, it's been 2 weeks since the rumors come out, so who knows if it's even still on the front burner for either team. But Justin Falk already came out and said he's a Carolina Hurricane unless another team has a contract offer that suffices him. He will be a Carolina Hurricane. That's the only way he's getting traded is with a new contract along with it.
Okay, so say he gets moved to Anaheim. All of a sudden, you know, Honka's available. If you're Dallas, do you take a big chance and say, listen, we want Calder Cup champion Hayden Fleury? I mean, he's not going to be that centerpiece, but do you say, listen, throw him in and we'll try to work with him? Because at this point, he's played around 100 games and hasn't really done a whole lot for being taken 6th, 7th overall a few years ago. He hasn't even done all that great in the A. I mean, yeah, he won with Charlotte this year, but I don't think he hasn't lived up to be the player that they thought he was going to be at all. Like, they had a bunch of really good young defensemen, him being one of them, and every single one surpassed him. And he's just kind of the odd man out now. And unless somebody wants to take a stab at him, and that being Dallas, where you can put him in a Ben Lovejoy kind of situation where he's a 7th D and you throw him in, say, here, here, and here, and just say, do what you have to do, let him develop. Do you want him at all?
I would say no, just for the pure fact is Dallas, to me, and I think to you too, is a playoff team.
Yes, for sure.
I don't think they're really in the state of mind to take flyers on guys right now. I think they want guys that can step in and contribute. And that's why I find it hard if Carolina did move Falk to Anaheim. What are you giving Dallas for Honka? Like, I don't see another defenseman in that core that they're willing to give up that really makes it work for Dallas for Honka, because there's still some value with Honka.
No, for sure.
You can't just say he's just done and the value's gone.
No, because
there's no bust label on him yet. So you got to imagine there's still some value there, and there's no defenseman, I think, that the value lines up, because you're not going to trade Jake Gardner because you just signed him.
You just got him in there.
You're not trading Dougie Hamilton, too much value. Slavin and Pesci, too much value. So I guess maybe you would take Trevor Van Riemsdyk in a second, maybe. In a second that maybe if Honka plays so many games, or Carolina, like a conditional second where it might turn into a first.
If Honka plays 60 games and is a +5, it's the second round.
Something like that, because Carolina has 2 firsts this year. They have Toronto's from the Patrick Marleau trade.
Yeah.
So maybe they're willing to, and maybe they even trade that the pick that Toronto gave them.
Because, I mean,
we'll give you Toronto's first and Trevor Van Riemsdyk. No, it's going to be in the 20s, mid-20s to 31.
Yeah, like if you're a Toronto fan, which you are, your guess is that pick is going to be 25 and up.
Yes, hopefully. We hope that.
Yeah.
But that value of that first round pick to me and Trevor Van Riemsdyk, a semi-proven defenseman that you can trust in the defensive zone. He's more of a stay-at-home guy. We saw that in Chicago and a little bit in Carolina. That to me might be a good value for a Julius Honka that is looking for a change of scenery. So that would be my only trade scenario I can see. But if Justin Falk is still there and Dallas is willing to give him a contract offer, then I'd say start with that as your starting point for a trade. And obviously Dallas is going to have to give a little more on their end if they're going for a Justin Falk.
where does Montreal come into play? If you're Dallas, like, I mean, a couple good young guys. I mean, but who are you asking for if you're Dallas asking Montreal? Like, you call them up. Who do you want? I feel like this is just Bergevin saying, "Oh, look, a defenseman, I want him." Like, where do you, like? I don't see what they're gonna ask for.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing like I just said with Carolina. You're really trying to find that deal that you feel you're getting significant value. I'm sure Bergevin wouldn't mind losing out on the Carl Alzner contract if there ever was a trade to fruition, but Dallas would never
I don't
take
see Dallas.
No, that's just Dreamville for Montreal fans. But no, I think it's just teams doing their due diligence. Like every good GM in the league knows
You always have to call
when there's a hole to fill or when there's opportunity to improve the team. You got to take advantage of those opportunities. And after the year Montreal had, you got to think that their aspirations are playoffs this year. Last year, no one looked at. People thought they were going to have a top 5 pick last year again.
Mm-hmm.
But they ended up making a push and just missing on the playoffs. So you got to think that Bergevin's aspirations for this young and old team is playoffs. So I don't know what you give up for a Julius Honka if you're Montreal. I don't really think there's anyone on the back end that Montreal will be willing to give up to get a Julius Honka. So I really think that's just Bergevin being Bergevin.
So, everybody's fear. We thought there was going to be a lockout. As of right now, it looks like we're not going to have a lockout.
And no Olympics.
28-3 owner votes for no Olympics. 3 owners. That math is correct, yeah. Yeah, it was 28-3 for no going to the Olympics. I want to know who those 3 GMs are. Or, sorry, those 3 owners who said, yes, send my players to the Olympics. It was probably, it may have been, Washington, because Putin called and said, we need the Ovechkin, and we want them now for Olympics. But, I don't know. I mean, as of right now, no lockout. I mean, that just kicks the can 3 years down the road. But as of right now, no lockout. We're going to see hockey for 3 more years, which, knock on wood, it doesn't happen again. But awesome news. No lockout, 3 years of hockey. We don't have to start learning Finnish and watching the League at 2 a.m.
Yeah, obviously, for any hockey fan, you never want there to be a lockout. That's just, you hate them.
Would have been the 4th lockout since 1995.
Yeah, you hate them. They're stupid. You're bored out of your mind if you're like a diehard hockey fan. You're just bored out of your mind. I am a huge fan of the Olympics. I love the Olympics. I just think it's awesome to see all the best players playing on their country's teams, but I understand the kickback.
But that's
I
what
would
it
be
is,
too.
though.
If I was an owner and if I was a GM, I would have the same kickbacks as they do. If I'm sending a Connor McDavid, a Sidney Crosby, an Ovechkin, any kind of big name player, if I'm sending any of those guys over there, I don't want them coming back with an injury. And players,
we've seen that happen before.
And players don't think about that when they're going over there. All they're thinking about is, I love to play for my country, and I want to play for my country.
No, and I mean, I get that, because, yeah, if you're paying Connor McDavid $12 million and he comes back with a broken knee and is never the same player again, you're fucked.
Yeah.
But, at the same time, the Olympics is the best players in the world. And I don't know how much you watched of the last Olympics,
I watched
but
quite a little bit, and I was...
that Canada team was not the best in the world.
Yeah, you got a little... If you really wanted to watch them, you watched it, but if it was... You kind of got bored of it after a while, because you're just like...
I know that guy from 3 years
I
ago
know
when
this
he
guy
played
from
in
3
the
years
AHL.
ago. Oh,
Yeah.
he plays over here now, does he?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like... It was kind of like watching the Spangler Cup twice in 1 year.
Yeah. Spangler Cup, not bad hockey.
No.
But it's not the Olympics.
We all love the Spangler Cup, but you don't want to be watching it during the Olympics.
Spangler Cup is that guy who got eliminated from the playoffs and was like, yeah, I guess so. I'm going to go play. I'm still in the mood. And then those guys were like, yeah, we've been eliminated since Christmas. This is the best hockey, most exciting chance we've had to win in a long time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, no, it's a bittersweet, because like I said, Olympics is supposed to be the best players in the world, but if I'm an owner, I don't want Connor McDavid losing out I don't want to lose Connor McDavid's career because some Russia guy just said, no, it's okay, and kicked him.
And, like, for any fan of definitely Canada, like, you had to have, like, a dream scenario where you've seen Connor McDavid and Sidney Crosby on a line together, whether it be actually a line or on a power play. But you want to see that. Like, that would be amazing to see. But we're not going to see it. Who knows if we're ever going to see it the way that it's been talked about. You might just hear the next negotiations that is done. It's the NHL wants nothing to do with the Olympics.
But the Olympics wants the NHL because the NHL makes a lot of money for the Olympics. And I don't know if you know this, but the Olympics, believe it or not, is actually just pretty much about the money. That's all they really care about. That's why the Olympics
And it's their money, not the city's money.
They do not spend that money on the city after the Olympics are there. No.
It's been proven many a times the cities make nothing.
They look in bad shape after they leave. Those stadiums are just sitting there in poverty-torn places, and it doesn't look good at all.
No.
Okay, but speaking of the Olympics, I thought of this last night when I was doing some research for the podcast. If you're a third-line player who, you know, you're not a top six forward, you're a bottom nine, but you're a good bottom nine forward, you can make $2 million as a free agent, and you know the Olympics are coming up. Do you say, hey, I'm going to go play in Finland for a year and make $900,000, but I get to play probably top six role for Canada at the Olympics? Or do you say, I'm going to stay in the NHL, collect $2 million, and never play in the Olympics?
That's tough because you're throwing... It depends what the NHL is offering. I mean, if you're saying, like, this guy's getting a 1 year, $2 million contract, then maybe. But if someone's saying, we'll give you a term, like a high term, like, not a high term.
Oh, no, you don't turn down term. I'm saying definitely, no, a 1 year
You don't
contract.
turn down term for a month of hockey.
Yes.
No matter what.
Sure.
You don't turn it down.
No.
I can't see it. I know a lot of maybe fringe American leaguers, NHLers might sway them, knowing they might get a call from Hockey Canada.
What the Canadian Olympic team was before. It was a lot of guys that we'd seen the last 4 years who were fringe NHL guys who started playing in the KHL, or they started playing the Liga or the Dell.
And I think that's exactly what you're going to see.
Yeah, no, it for sure. But that's my, not really my point, but that's where I'm getting at. Like, if you're a bottom six forward, a good bottom six forward, and say...
So let's just take an example. Let's take Trevor Lewis in LA.
Yeah.
He's Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom six guy in LA.
He's won 2 Stanley Cups. And a lot of players, you ask them, what means more, a Stanley Cup or an Olympic gold medal? At the moment, they might say a Stanley Cup, but if you talk to players who've won both... And
maybe have won a cup and never got a chance to play in the Olympics, they might say, I may have won an Olympic gold medal.
Yeah.
Because it's something that only comes around every 4 years. It's super special. Everybody in the country gets behind that one team. And you remember I still remember 2010.
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to forget 2010.
Nope.
And if you take a guy like Trevor Lewis, like I just said, whose contract's coming up after this year, and the Olympics are right around the corner, does he take a 1-2 year deal over in Finland or Russia? Guy has already won 2 cups. It's not like he doesn't have 2 rings on his hand. Does he take that chance and say, I want to try and go win an Olympic medal? Because he's obviously not a Hall of Fame guy.
Nope.
None of these guys that are going to be on the Olympic team are going to be Hall of Famers.
Maybe not NHL Hall of Famers. Could be an NHL Hall of Famer.
Maybe, yes. You got to take that into consideration. So maybe that's just him saying, I'll have 2 cups and a bronze, silver, or gold medal. So your theory is sound. Some guys might think like that. And Ovechkin might just say, buy me out and then re-sign me the way that he's passionate about the Olympics.
Yeah. Hey, Colorado, do you remember that deal that we had? Yeah, can you do that again?
Maybe. So, I think what's holding up the whole thing with the Olympics is that NHL wants to avoid them because they want the World Cup before every hockey season.
Because that's their thing.
Every second hockey
we would be
season.
seeing one this year coming up.
We would have been, yes. Yep. But that got... And I enjoyed the World Cup. I think most people were confused the timing of it,
Mm-hmm.
but you enjoyed it. It was hockey.
I mean, it is pretty similar in a way to the Olympics. You had Team Canada, you had the States, you had Russia, you had Europe.
In the implementation of Europe in the under 20.
Yeah, the under 23s.
23s,
yeah.
That was the different idea.
Yeah,
just to
which
bring
is a unique idea. It's
spice
smart.
to the
you have,
tournament.
You have guys like Connor like how often are you going to see Connor McDavid and Austin Matthews playing together?
Well, never again.
Yeah. So, and I mean it like
well,
I said,
can't say never again. We don't know what's going to happen.
At
but
the very
for the
moment,
foreseeable future,
yeah.
It's going to be hard.
Yeah, no, for sure. And just like going back to what I was saying, if you ask any kid who wants to play hockey what you want to do in hockey, they're going to tell you they want to play in the NHL. But if you took someone who was 25 years old and you said, hey, you get one season in the NHL and you might win a cup, or you have one chance to play in the Olympics where you can win a gold medal, honestly, I'd take the Olympics. I mean, yeah, you're going to get paid to play in the NHL. Even if you're getting paid minimum of $700,000, I'm going to take the Olympics. Because 5 years down the road, they say, hey, who are you? I'm going to say, I'm Brett Lewis. I won a gold medal playing for Team Canada. To me, that sounds better than, hi, I'm Brett Lewis. I won a Stanley Cup 5 years ago. And they go, okay, what are you doing now? And you're just a player who won the Stanley Cup. Someone wins the Stanley Cup every year. There's 20-plus players on that team that wins the Stanley Cup. You win a gold medal, you're a part of that team forever who won that gold medal. You could take that gold medal and say, here you go, 30 years, son. This is your gold medal that I won, being the best player in the world. One of the best players in the world to compete for this.
Yeah, I would say
that's
like
my,
that. It sounds
my
good
take.
for sure. It's just, I don't know, when you're a little kid, I mean, obviously you're dreaming to play at the highest level no matter what, but I don't know, when you see those commercials, I mean, you see more commercials of guys every year holding up the Stanley Cup, and I mean, there's just something about the Stanley Cup. I think it's
that looks good. Like, you can't lie.
I think it's the best trophy in major sports in North America. I do. I understand the Lombardi Trophy is big.
It's a football on a stick.
Same with the Larry O'Brien Trophy.
Sorry, and that's a trash can that's holding a ball on top of it.
And the World Series trophy is just a bunch of flags.
To me, that's the second best.
Circle. After
the Stanley Cup, I think it is. It's this beautiful circular trophy with a bunch of pennant flags all in it. Like, it looks almost like it's a stadium of flags. To me, that's cool, but it's only this little tiny paperweight to me.
Okay, I think it's the worst, but we'll move on from that anyway.
Well, I mean, we can agree to disagree.
But when you see a guy... Because, I mean, when you hold the other three trophies up...
You can hold it one hand.
You can kind of hold... Like, they're heavy, but you can hold... Like, I was right next to the NBA championship trophy once. It's not as big as you think it is. They obviously don't let you touch it. I tried to. They wouldn't let me. But you can just look at it and you're like, it's kind of heavy, but you can kind of like hold it. If you put your arm around it, you can hold it with one arm. Same with the baseball one's kind of harder because like you have to hold it with two hands because there's no real top. And you see every year, Tom Brady, when he lifts it up again and again, it's one hand. One hand.
Yeah, another one.
But when you see every individual guy do his skate around the rink, holding up the Stanley Cup, there's just something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Well, it's like the commercial says, there's no words.
There is no words.
There's no words.
And in my opinion, I would take the Stanley Cup. You get your name on it. You get that one moment around the rink. Because, I mean, when you win the Olympic gold medal, you all stand on a line. You don't really get that individual moment. Like, you're on a line getting your medal. When you got the Stanley Cup, you get that one lap. And some guys get more than one. Crosby's had his 3 laps.
I mean, but Ovechkin had tits flash at him.
Yeah, when Ovechkin finally had his one lap, you could see the happiness and passion that he had for that one lap.
Yeah.
And I understand totally where you're coming from.
No, and I mean...
It's definitely a hard...
No, it is a hard pick. We can fight that till we're blue in the face. And that's the thing. Like, when I look at it, and I mean, tomorrow I could change and say, you know what, I'd rather Stanley Cup. But I mean, to me, like, in the moment, for sure, a Stanley Cup would be better. But when I think about it, like, going down the road when I'm 45 years old and watching hockey, and I can look over and say, I won a gold medal. It's sitting there right on my shelf. I was one of the top like hockey players in the world. I won that. My kids can come and touch that. You get the Stanley Cup for one day. You can get little tiny ones made, and then people make the comparison of...
Do you think, just when you just said that now, and I was just thinking of it, sorry to interrupt, do you think Major Leagues should start doing that? Creating... Like, because when you win NHL awards, they give you tiny trophies of the NHL awards you won.
Yeah, maybe
Do you think every player on the team
gets a mini
who
Stanley
got
Cup.
a ring should get a mini Stanley Cup?
You get a mini Stanley Cup that just says your name. It says Joshua McKinnon, 2019 Stanley Cup champion. That's what it says.
Yeah.
That would be cool, but I can't see... I mean, when they spend...
I mean, would it look more like an accomplishment on your shelf, or would it more look like the McDonald's Stanley Cup that you got when they were giving that away?
Listen, those are nice. Don't talk about those. I have a complete collection.
I have a complete... Yeah.
They're nice.
But would it look more like that? Like, if someone walked in your house and they see an Olympic gold medal, someone's going to go, holy crap, that's an Olympic gold medal. And if someone walks in and sees a mini Stanley Cup, like...
Why do you have a...
Did you get that at Pro Hockey Life or something? Where'd you get that from?
Yeah. And then you have to be like, no, I was a Stanley Cup champion. They'd be like, I didn't see you play. And we're like, yeah, it's part of the thing.
And then you got to whip it out on Wikipedia.
Like, listen, and you go to Hockey DB early prospects. You're like, listen, I had no points in 16 games. We swept everybody.
Yeah.
No.
So
and then even
it's definitely an argument that I guess that for sure a lot of people could have, and it's just your preference. Like, I would choose. A big thing for me is I could choose the World Juniors over a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think the World Juniors is the most special. I enjoy watching the World Juniors more than anything else. I look forward to that tournament every year.
To a tournament that started as a nothing tournament where they said, we have a bunch of free airspace and Canadians like to play hockey and there's these little young guys going to play hockey. Let's just put it on TV. And now every year it is the biggest event at Christmas.
I know people who don't know anything about hockey. No, nothing. You can name them a big name player. They don't know who that is. But they watch the World Juniors. They might not know the players, but they enjoy watching the World Juniors. It's a tradition for a lot of people now. But that's a different argument in itself, because that's obviously when you're younger, and that's more of a make the team, because there's so many guys that can make that team.
Okay, so we're talking about all this. We're talking about Olympics, Stanley Cup, World Juniors. Have you ever seen the picture... I think it's Jeff Carter or it's Richards. It's one of them that they have, and it's after they won the second Stanley Cup, and it's the bowl. It's the top of the Stanley Cup. It's after 2014. It's the 2012 Stanley Cup ring. His 2014 Olympic gold medal, or his I want to say it's 2014 Olympic gold medal.
It would be 2014 because the Olympics we just had were in 2018.
Yeah. But this is back in 2014 itself. This is after LA. This is the summer after LA won their second Stanley Cup.
Okay.
It's a picture, and it's the top of the Stanley Cup. In it, we'll say it's the 2014 Olympic gold medal, the 2012 Stanley Cup medal, Stanley Cup ring. Start this over. It is the top of the Stanley Cup. He has his medal from 2014.
Yep.
He has his ring from 2014.
Oh, from 2014.
Yeah, the Olympic athletes get rings too.
Oh, okay.
So it's the medal and the ring.
I actually had no clue they got rings.
They're nice. The 2012 ring, his 2004 World Junior ring, and his 2004 Calder Cup ring, all in one.
It's a
nice picture.
It's a championship career.
I will show you that after we're done here. It is, when people are like, "What's so nice about jewelry?" I'm like, just look at this picture. I love it.
And it's not just jewelry. That's hard work.
That is like we talk about. You have the gold medal on your shelf. They take the Stanley Cup away, but they say, "Here's a beautiful $200,000 ring full of diamonds with your name on it.
Yeah,
you can wear this anytime you want." And then you look at guys that go out.
I mean, and when do guys really wear the ring?
Just when they go out, or like functions.
They wear it to alumni functions and going out to different team functions. Like,
you're not going to walk downtown wearing it.
Tom Brady did an interview with Conan O'Brien when he was on a segment that Conan does, Coolest Gamer, and he played video games with Tom Brady. And he asked him, do you just go and wear all the rings at the same time? And Tom said, no, I got them in a safe and they're locked up, and I bring them out every now and again and show them off. Yeah. I don't really wear them.
And that's what players do. They put it, if they're jewelry guys, I mean, a lot of pro athletes, they're jewelry guys. Like, they have their watches, they have their necklaces, they have their rings. They have it in a nice place, a safe, secure place. They're not walking down the road to Sobeys to get a 2-liter of Pepsi
wearing
their Stanley Cup ring.
Wearing the ring.
No, for sure. All right, so we've been arguing. You know who else used to argue? Any ideas?
No.
Speculation says there was a trio of arguments between Penguins coach Sullivan, Phil the Thrill Kessel, and Evgeny Malkin. And then shortly down the road, Evgeny Malkin statements come out, and then down the road, Phil Kessel gets traded to the Arizona Coyotes for Alex Galchenyuk. And Phil the Thrill gets a fresh new start. And now more stuff comes out about Phil Kessel basically going to the front office saying, you trade me or you trade him. It's one of us.
It was actually the other way around.
They approached them?
It was Malkin who went to Jimmy Rutherford, not Kessel.
Isn't that what I said?
No, you said Kessel went to the front office.
I meant Malcolm.
Malcolm went to the front office.
And said
it's me or him.
Yeah, it's him or I.
Him. Okay. So, this is from an article from Rob Rossi from The Athletic.
All right, lay it on me.
His quote goes, it's clear that Evgeny Malkin grew tired of the feeling that he was caught between the ongoing Sullivan and Kessel rift. He felt he was always in the middle of those on-bench arguments, and I guess they were off-ice ones as well.
But you could see them on the ice. If you watch the Penguins game, you could see them on the bench.
Yeah, and I mean, when you win 2 cups in a row, and you think you got it down pat, something's always going to come up, and you just snap.
Yeah.
Either one. So, and that was according to multiple team sources from that. So, multiple teams knew about the rifts and how Malkin felt caught in the middle of it. The sources also said that Malkin felt that Kessel felt content with the 2 cups and was just all about points after that. Like, Malkin's mindset towards Kessel was, or Kessel's mindset, according to Malkin, which was most likely false. Maybe a little true. A little bit
of truth probably sprinkled in there, but you also have to realize that Phil has a big reputation that people have said is absolutely not true, and it's all media driven, that he is an uncoachable player and he is selfish and only cares about himself.
Yeah, I think that just sprouts from the Toronto media, and it's just stuck ever since.
And that's the thing. Phil Kessel is a guy who does not care. And when I say he doesn't care, I don't mean he doesn't care about hockey. He does not care what the media thinks. He doesn't play into the media. He doesn't give the media anything. He just says, hey, how you doing? This is my interview. That's it. Deal with it how you want.
So talking about Malkin saying that Kessel felt content with the 2 cups and didn't care about cups anymore and just cared about points. Malkin, this kind of threw me off because I don't think people would have had this opinion about Malkin. But Malkin apparently was worried that he'd be seen the same way as Kessel if Kessel remained on his line. So he thought if Kessel was still on his wing, people would think that Malkin is content with his 3 championships, which I don't think is really true because when I see Evgeny Malkin play, I see a guy who's giving it all.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
I just think that's all in his head.
No, and I think that's the way Malkin is. I think Malkin for sure is definitely the kind of guy who just. I mean, he played with Sidney Crosby his entire career, who's the same way. He will do anything it takes to win, at all. And I feel like Pittsburgh didn't have a good year last year. When you win back-to-back cups, everybody who was a Penguins fan said three-peat. And Matt Murray didn't have a good year. The decor wasn't what it was supposed to be. Malkin was injured. You had guys being traded, the bottom guys. You had, people coming in. You had Brassard coming in from Florida who didn't work out. They tried a lot of things and nothing worked out. They had a bad year. That's all it was. And, sometimes shit happens and Kessel's gone and then you get all these media reports right after it.
Especially the year we just had where they got knocked out by the Islanders in the first round. No one really saw that coming. And when it happened, you kind of knew...
Something had to give.
Something had to happen in the offseason when that happened. Jimmy Rutherford is not a GM that stays...
He's never happy with his team.
He's never happy with his team. He's always looking to move and shift the team what he's thinking is... Which is not a bad thing, because...
No, you need to be active when you're
He's
a GM.
gotten 3 cups doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But at a certain point, a big name has to move, and Kessel was the one. I mean, obviously he made the right choice.
Yep.
Any logical person saying, I'm going to keep Evgeny Malkin
you can't have two
over
of the best
Phil
centers.
Kessel.
You can't split up two of the best centers who have won 3 Stanley Cups have been in the face of that franchise since 2004.
No, you can't do that. He made the right choice. It's tough that had to happen because the team is still good.
You could still win with that team.
The Metro's tough, but when you have Evgeny Malkin, Sidney Crosby, and if Matt Murray can bounce back, that team is just as good as it did when it won 2 cups
back to back
3 and 4 years ago. So, it's strange to me that Malkin felt that way about Kessel. Maybe it was true, and maybe it wasn't true, but in the end, you got to make a choice, and I do think Jimmy Rutherford made the best choice. And, it's not like he got nothing back.
No, you have
He got
Galchenyuk,
Alex Galchenyuk and Pierre-Oliver Joseph.
who, first-round pick, could be a top defenseman. Projected to be a top 4.
I think he'll definitely end up being a second-pairing guy, for sure. I think that's definitely his floor. I think his ceiling's a little higher, but to get a potential defenseman like that, when Pittsburgh really doesn't have a lot of guys in the system anymore.
Like we said, they traded away everybody they had trying to get better for years and years and years, and that got them 3 Stanley Cups.
Their top prospect was Daniel Sprong.
Yeah.
They traded him for Marcus Pettersson.
Yeah. Who they kind of rushed Daniel Sprong.
They definitely did. And
they rushed him, and they sat him, and they just didn't handle it.
Marcus Pettersson was definitely a decent return for where Sprong was.
Yep.
But at some point, you have to have the shelves not fully stocked, but semi-stocked. And to get a roster player that could probably get 30 goals.
Galchenyuk is minimum a 20-goal scorer.
30 if you put him on line
for a 30 if you put him
on line with Malkin.
Yeah, if you put him in power play minutes, he should hit 30 goals on a
Crosby,
team like Pittsburgh.
You put him up in the top 6. Something might happen.
But he is netting you bottom line 20 goals every year from here on out if he's playing in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and then you have that prospect. So it's not like they got nothing in return. But I don't know. I just can't see. I mean, Kessel that attitude might come a little more into the woodwork now that he's in Arizona, and he's definitely going to be counted on to be a big point producer, and that might go to his head a little bit. But I just can't believe that all that's true, what Malkin thinks about him.
See, the thing that bothers me is they say he only cares about the points. When you get points, you win games. When you win games, you win a Stanley Cup. Phil is a sniper. He scores you goals.
And an underrated passer. I think he showed that in Pittsburgh, that he is an underrated playmaker.
Exactly. Every single year he's been in Pittsburgh, he's been a point-per-game player. And I don't think people talk about that enough. Yes, he was in Pittsburgh, and he played with guys like Crosby and Malkin. But he's supposed to score goals. That's what he does. He's one of the best goal scorers in the league. So when you say he only cares about points, to me, I'm partially going to take that as a good thing. If you get a guy
he would have to.
Yeah. They say, he only cares about points. Well, if he's scoring you 40 goals a year, that's games you win. Caring
about points technically means he cares about winning, and caring about winning technically means he cares about Stanley Cup. So you can connect the dots if you want.
Yeah, I don't blow that out of proportion, saying, oh, he's a selfish player, he only cares about scoring and for points himself. Malkin's going to pass him that puck. He's going to put that puck in the net. He's going to score that goal. That's a better chance you have to win that game.
Yeah.
I don't see how saying he only cares about points is a negative thing. I don't in any situation. Like, I know if he's a younger player and they say he only cares about points and he's obviously not getting better and he's not rounding his game, but when you're Phil Kessel and you're 30 years old and you've won 2 Stanley Cups and you're one of the best goal scorers in the league, I don't see that as a bad thing whatsoever. I can't see it. I feel like that's just the media trying to make something out of nothing.
Yeah, and that might be it. I mean, when the summer starts getting blah, and you're waiting for at least preseason to come, RFAs aren't signing, maybe people are digging in and maybe over-exaggerating stuff a little bit just to get hockey people a little into it. But at the end of the day, he's on a different team now. It doesn't matter. Malkin got what he wanted. He got new wingers. Kessel's in a new town, new city, which I think he's going to thrive in.
I see Arizona.
If they play on a line, let's say you put a Schmaltz, Keller, and Kessel line, they're could be a really good line for Arizona.
Keller also, recent RFA who did sign. We didn't talk about that, but good contract for what he should be. And I just want to put this out there now. Bold prediction: Arizona wins their division. To me, Arizona is winning that division this year. You can throw your arguments just there. Just to me, Arizona wins that division. I see it. That's my prediction right now, and you have it on tape. Arizona's going to win that division. I'll eat it if I'm wrong.
I don't have my pick for the division yet. I don't know if I would go with Arizona. I definitely see Arizona as a. I think they finally make the push this year and do grab a playoff spot. I think it might be their year. Hopefully, you hope for the fan base at least. It is their year to make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. I mean, you just hope for it. With Clayton Keller, I've loved him since he was gone. I took him in fantasy his rookie year. I always take a rookie or two during fantasy, and he did go for me in fantasy. He did what I thought he was going to do, and he had a sophomore slump the year we just had, but you expect that with a lot of guys. Mm-hmm. The league kind of caught up to him, so now it's his chance to get ahead of the league again. And having a guy on your opposite wing like a Phil Kessel, and maybe in the center like a Nick Schmaltz looking to prove something with his contract that Arizona gave him after the trade to Chicago, that could be a dangerous line out in the West. Not a top line, but a dangerous enough line where that first pairing defensive pairing has to come out for the other team to defend that line.
Yeah, just to me, I just see it as San Jose got worse, in my opinion. They got worse. Vegas pretty much kind of stayed the same. I mean, LA and Anaheim are just there.
I think you can count those two teams out as winning the division, for sure.
No, and that's the thing, where Arizona was a bubble team last year. With the moves they made, how do you not see them better than either of those teams? I think San Jose obviously took a huge step back, and then Vegas is right there. So if you're competing with Vegas and you're a one and one, I could see them just saying, "Hey, look, we're gonna take the division. That's it."
For me, Arizona is probably. I'm looking at the division right now just to make sure I got every team right. Arizona to me is third, maybe fourth. I see Vegas is above them.
Yeah,
I see Calgary above them.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about Calgary honestly, but I think Calgary also took a step back.
If they get Tkachuk back, I don't think they took a step back.
No, but as of right now, if they start playing today, I think they're stepping back.
And where do you see their step back? Is it Mike Smith leaving and them trusting Daniel Riddick for the full-time position?
Yeah, no, I think
because I could, that would be a step that I would agree with you a little bit, because Calgary, when the last month and a half when we were talking about playoffs, no one was talking about the offense stopping for Calgary. Everyone was saying, "Is Mike Smith gonna show up?" Mike Smith showed up.
Mike Smith was the only person in that playoffs who did anything for that team at all. And then just to be kicked out.
I put Calgary. I did put in. I'll own up to it now. I did when I did anyways. I picked Calgary to make the Stanley Cup Finals in the year we just had, because I had a feeling Mike Smith was going to pick it up, and I was right. But the one thing I didn't account for,
the rest of the team,
was the rest of the team just saying nope.
See, I remember going into that playoffs, and everybody was saying, "Well, this is on Mike Smith. Mike Smith, he hasn't been good. Mike Smith had a bad first half of the year. His last 25 games of the season in Calgary last year, he had a goals against average of 2. Everybody overlooked that all year. Or sorry, at the end of the year into playoffs, everybody said, "Well, Mike Smith was bad all year." He wasn't. He had a bad start, in which David Riddick just ran with, and that's why they had a one-horse. They didn't have a one-horse, they had a 1A, 1B. And then going into playoffs, the last 25 games, you have a goals against average of 2? There's no way they didn't go with him. I don't know why anybody questioned it, if you look at the stats. And then you go into those playoffs, and he's the only one on that team that shows up. And to get rid of him, yes, I know he's another year older, but I don't see Cam Talbot as a better option than him. Even if you go 60-40 with David Riddick being the 60, I'd rather Mike Smith. Me, myself.
I would rather Mike Smith, and we'll get into it in another episode. We will do a standings standings episode, who we think will finish where, and most intriguing team in each division in another episode, and that's definitely an argument for that episode. But no, just getting back to Arizona, just it's a good addition for them. I mean, Galchenyuk, they took a flyer on him. They didn't. They obviously saw an upgrade in Kessel. I think anyone would see an upgrade in Kessel, and giving up a defensive prospect. I don't think they're too worried about giving up Pierre-Olivier Joseph. I mean, their shelf is still pretty stocked. I mean, their guys are finally moving up to the NHL level.
Yeah.
So I don't think they're too worried about losing one of their prospects to bring in a big name like Phil Kessel. And the day Phil Kessel got traded there, season tickets
flew off the shelf.
Skyrocketed. So I mean, if the price of selling way more tickets is getting rid of Pierre-Olivier Joseph
For a team that doesn't make money.
And bringing in a big name like that, I mean, you got to do it. So both teams saw a need. Both teams completed a pretty good hockey trade.
No, for sure. We'll finish off with this here. You and I have spoke about it off the air. Tampa Bay stocked up
Abundance
on
of goalies.
Jeez, they have Vasi, and then they had Louis Domingue, and then they go out and they sign Curtis McElhaney, and then
they have Scott Wedgwood.
And they signed Scott Wedgwood he was in Rochester with Buffalo last year. They got rid of Connor Ingram because there was some issues, I guess you could say, with him and management and maybe his ego. And then they also get Condon from Ottawa. So that's a crowded crease. If you're me, if I'm Louis Domingue, the moment they sign Curtis McElhaney, I'm packing my bags and listing my house for sale. And then as of today at training camp, before we recorded this, it comes out that Louis Domingue and Condon both got waived. Like I said, we spoke about this before, and I said to you, Louis Domingue, to me, has never been a great NHL goalie. I know he had some rough time in Arizona, and he kind of got passed around a little bit. To me, he's always been that third goalie, that good AHL goalie who, if you need to, he can come up and play 20 games. He had a really good year last year in Tampa Bay. My opinion, being the goalie guy I am, he was on the best team of all time and got hot behind that team. If you look at his stats everywhere else, they have not been good. And I think, to me, this is the end of him as an NHL player. Places I see him going are Florida. We know Florida has Bob. He is for sure their number one goalie. There's no question about that, getting him this year. And then in the system, for a few years, they've had Montembeault. He played a few games last year. I see him being a cheap, easy backup next year. But if I'm Florida, I would take Louis Domingue. I'd pick him up and say, hey, you can play down in Springfield, and if we need you, you've proven that you can play in the NHL, you can come up. I don't think Florida has really anybody in the system. They signed Philip Deschores, who was a second-round pick of Dallas in 2013. He never really got past the ECHL. He played he was up and down in the A. I'm not relying on him as a third goalie. They have Chris Strider, who was in Ottawa's system. I don't know if I trust him as a third goalie. He could maybe come in. I trust him as a fourth. I don't trust him as a third at all. So if I'm Florida, I say, okay, I'll take you. You have just about $1 million contract. I have Bob. I have Montembeault. And then I put Louis Domingue. And then I have Chris Strider. And then I have Deschores in the A. And then the other situation I could see is Colorado. Colorado has no backup spot. They got rid of Varlamov, so he is gone to the Islanders. And now they have Philip Grubauer. And the person filling the backup role is a 29-year-old. I can't pronounce his name. Honestly, it starts with an F. That's my bad. He played 4 games with them last year and put up good numbers, but he didn't get any wins. He went 0-2. Never being an NHL backup, that makes me question it, because they also, in their system, they have 3 other goalies signed. All of them are below the age of 25. Those are my 2 places I see him going.
I'm just looking at the list of teams right now, and I'm just going through them and like who has a need for backup goaltending. And you just said you don't like Louis Domingue, so you're probably not going to like the team I'm going to say. But I see New Jersey as a team that needs another goalie. I mean, if you really... You can't... It's hard to see them depending solely on Corey Schneider the last couple of years he's had. I mean, you have Mackenzie Blackwood. You're hoping he grows a little more. But if Schneider goes down again, it wouldn't hurt to have Louis Domingue in there.
No, for sure.
Or Mike Condon. Either one. I can't see both of them clearing waivers.
I don't see Mike Condon.
I think it's going to be the same situation as Toronto had last year when they put Pickard and McElhaney on waivers, and both of them got claimed. I think both of them are going to end up getting claimed.
I don't see Condon getting claimed myself. I see Louis Domingue absolutely, without a doubt, getting claimed.
I think Condon's going to get claimed, but I think he's going to be put on waivers again soon after.
Yeah, right to be assigned right back down.
Yeah. There's not too much else there. Just a few things I did want to just round off with. Just a correction. When we talked about Mikko Rantanen's contract earlier, I was right where it was in the $8 million range.
It's 8.5 to 8.75.
So the range that the Avs are targeting is 8.4 to 8.75, which makes a little more sense because that puts him on Nathan MacKinnon ground. If 8.4 is just below Nathan MacKinnon, 8.75 is just above. So it puts him below above. So I highly doubt that gets done with that kind of money. That's just me. Another thing happened last night. Ryan Poehling, concussion. He's
done for a while. That's bad for the Habs.
A lot of Montreal fans were probably excited to see him play, especially
after
the debut last
league.
Season
Yeah.
against the Leafs. The fans were probably definitely looking forward to seeing this guy that you hope creates a 1-2 punch down the middle with Jesperi Kotkaniemi. Definitely a future 1-2 punch you hope for the Montreal Canadiens. He's listed as out indefinitely right now. Don't know when he's going to come back. It's hard to say with concussions because everyone handles them differently.
Different.
You hope he comes back and does have an impact for Montreal because they are going to need that. They want their young guys to start moving up and making impacts, and I think he's a guy who could definitely make an impact on the team if he comes back healthy. And just another contract today. I don't think we touched on it. Tony DeAngelo.
No, we
and the Rangers signed yesterday a 1-year, $925K deal. That to me is like a Kevin LeBanc bargain contract, where he's just like, I'm going to help you guys out for a year, and not take a lot of money. Because I think Tony DeAngelo is going to really surprise a lot of people this year and really start playing like what we thought he was going to play, like when Tampa took him, when they drafted him in the first round.
Yeah.
So that's all. That's pretty much all the news that I have. That was just random up. Just wanted to make that one correction and 2 little notes.
All right, so I think we're done for tonight. All right, guys, this is episode 1 of the Over the Boards podcast. Let us know what you think, and we will see you when we see you. Goodbye.